what would be one piece of advice that you would give your younger self, your early on in your career event marketing person?
I would say think big picture when you're planning. A lot of people tend to get myopic when they've got an event and they're focused on that event. And if it could be a different vertical, it could be a different message. And there's a lot of individual things, but also thinking big picture, looking at maybe your entire year, that what you've planned. Is the messaging scalable? Is your booth design scalable? Is it modular? Where you're investing your time, where you're investing your costs? I would advise them to take a step back and look at everything as the big picture and figure out how you can utilize your resources and your assets that you're investing so much time and so much cost into. How can you really make those stretch and look at it from that perspective? That would be my biggest advice. Everything we do, right? We do.
Planners, we're all 100%. In detail.
And trade shows are like childbirth. You forget all the pain and then you're on to the next one. Survival is not a success metric, even though it feels like it at the end of all of our shows. But I think being able to look at what you're doing and understand if you can apply those resources and that investment in time and money in multiple arenas, like A, that's going to make you look like a star, and B, it's going to help you out in the long run because you've already established some of that bedrock before you're moving into the next event.
Sure.
So scalable and how you can apply it across your job, it applies to everything.
Do not underestimate the old-fashioned way of doing something. And what I simply mean is, I'm not saying get off my lawn. I'm saying that while AI and digital doppelgangers are extremely cool and very powerful when they work right, they're simply tools that augment. They do not replace face-to-face interaction. The other part of it, and I mentioned this a while ago, is serendipity. The ability to meet someone you didn't expect, a conversation you never saw coming, something you learned that's completely out of the blue. Serendipity is really part of the reason we go to shows. Networking, yes. Just see new products. Those are the three pillars that you need to build on.
Be bold. I think that the times in my career where I saw the most success was when I took risks and decided to step outside of we're going to do it this way this year because we've done it that way every year, and introduced new ideas. And I think that there's always a challenge when you're taking those kinds of risks. I've had projects that I took a big risk and people were like, we should never do that again. And I said, you're right. We should never do that again. And I will never do that again. Yeah. But I think also my greatest successes have come out of those moments where everybody was like, are you really going to do this? Yep, we're really going to do it. We're going to see what happens, and just gotten tremendous results. So I think that being creative and thinking outside the box and taking risks and trying new things, is the advice. I wish I had done more of that, I think, in the course of my career.
I would say don't be afraid to ask questions, right? I mean, it's when I've looked back, this is my second year here. My first year was 2015. So it's been almost 10 years that haven't been back. And that person then versus now is, very more reserved. And I feel like a lot of event professionals are reserved because they're more like the stage crew, putting everything behind the scenes.
They're
make
the doers.
Work, right? And so move from doers to strategists. Don't just, work on the booth or the graphics, but ask the questions, the higher level questions. From what's our overall strategy? Why are we doing this? What are the objectives? Whereas my first year and when I started my career, it was like, okay, well, I know that I have to do this event. Here's my checklist. It's good to have that checklist, but also elevate your thinking.
When you're able to get a seat at the table, utilize that, right? And take what you're learning from the metrics that stakeholders are trying to accomplish, and then apply that into events. And then at the end, be able to say, look what we did.
Well, because you have to have the alignment between, events can be a catalyst for driving business outcomes, but only when you have those conversations with sales, with marketing, with executive leaders. If you bring them on and weave them into what you're doing, your life will be a lot easier.
You really need passion. It's a labor of love, for sure. Absolutely. And event marketing, it's interesting. So often I talk to people who just sort of fell into it. And fell in love with it. Now, I know when I first started in this industry, people said it to me, if you last 6 months, you're going to be in it forever. And that really seems to be the case, that people just kind of fall into it. What I do think is exciting is that the industry really seems to be trying to speak to younger generations now and saying, hey, this is a viable career that you can pursue from day one, rather than people, falling into it or having someone just say, oh, we got to do a trade show. This is your job now.
Yeah, no, I agree. Cause I fell into it too.
Oh, did you?
About 8 years ago. Yeah. And I knew somebody that did this and like set up their own booth. And I was like, oh, that's so cool.
Yeah.
And then I found, where I'm at now, Rockway. And it was just, now I'm like, 8.5 years later. I'm like,
past 6 months.
Establish those self-care habits early and, just don't sweat the small stuff. I don't now, but I think early on I did and was very much a perfectionist. And once I was able to let go of that is when I was really able to hit my groove.
When we get too caught up in the little tiny details, although the details do matter, when we kind of obsess over some things that might not make an impact at the end of the day, or they might, I always say, do you think at the end of the day anybody's going to remember that moment? Maybe not.
Right.
Why drain your energy on it? Right. Yeah, that's really good advice. Very good.
Find a good mentor. Don't be afraid to ask questions. I have not shied away from asking questions, even if it's a dumb question. Those don't exist because if you don't know it, somebody else doesn't know it. And just knowledge sharing in general, building those relationships, asking the questions. Don't be afraid to share new ideas. I feel like I'm a creative mind and I've been quiet coming into this, but I want to bring new ideas and break the mold and do new things that people haven't seen to get those, again, customers engaged, looking at our booth going, what is this? And get excited about services. So yeah.
Well, it's all about the more questions you ask, the more you learn, the more confident you get, the more bold you get, and the more you're willing to take risks.
Yeah.
And we all know that risks can fail, but also risks can give you really huge wins.
Yeah.
And so the more you go and the more you learn, I think it's going to be amazing for you.
I think going in and being willing to learn and being open to a lot of perspectives. I think sometimes what I'm seeing is we feel like we already are there.
Sure.
And I think that it's very important for all of us. Myself, who is very seasoned, I won't say old, very seasoned. Some of the younger people we just all need to be very open to learning different perspectives, not think that we have all the answers. Try not to be so judgmental. Really listen to each other because they are the future, but they can learn a lot from us. But what we can do is learn so much from them.
I absolutely agree with that. Everyone has different perspectives and you can learn from everyone. Doesn't matter whether they're new or they've been, really well established in their career here. I think that it's been very eye-opening, which is why I love coming to Exhibitor Live, because I feel like we all get that when we get to connect here.
100%.
Well, as we work through it, if you're an event marketer, you really do want to get together with your community. And what we find with the students that are coming in or the CTSM program is they want to find that network. And so that's why we do an education week that's separate. It doesn't have the big show, but it's more of just that connection with the community. I would say reach out to that group. Continue to build those bonds as they go forward with it. Work with your partners that you're doing with this, how to get connected with the different associations. Again, EDPA has a strong brand and then chapter organizations.
Sure.
You can get connected there and see what's going on. But I really think the more you just get into your community and start talking to others and build those networks. And every event we go to, we have network opportunities. Every event you go to or every industry has that. Take advantage of that and lean in. Don't be afraid. Just step into the crowd and say, hi, my name is Mark and I don't know about this. Tell me about that. Who do you do? Or what do you do? Where do you work? That kind of stuff.
Well, I would have to say that booking all the right shows and getting all the right equipment and, having everything arrive on time and the booth set up and it's perfect. It's going to be your booth staff that's going to make or break the event. You have to make sure that they're kept involved with, what's going to be the goals, what are our objectives, what is the theme. They have to be involved in every step of the way. You don't have to get their opinion, but you do need them to know what's expected of them, what the management is going to want out of this show. If they don't know what the goals are going in, they have nothing to try to track while they're there to see if they're doing a successful job.
One piece of advice. Like I said, one of the key items actually that's been a little bit different is AI has really transformed how we actually process and how we go to market, right? Data has become king in a lot of ways and people are raising and putting up barriers in general between it. So for me, it's making use of the actual data that you have, leveraging maybe the data points that you've collected over your history and being able to put that into something that understands it so you can take action on it. A lot of companies don't, miss the chance or miss the, the opportunity that's in front of them. You've already had a lot of meetings. People have notes everywhere. Are you take action on that? Like, how are you analyzing and processing that and taking next steps following through? So I would say look at what you have today and see how you can enhance it and enrich it. So with those data points are critical too.
I think it is. And somebody said this yesterday. You're not saving lives. So don't beat yourself up. If things go wrong, don't beat yourself up. But also, here's the thing is that we all will always find a solution to things. Things are always going to go wrong in events, and in talking like on show days and things like that. These are always going to happen. But that's part of I feel like that's also part of the joy in this industry is getting to be creative and think outside the box. And sometimes that is like in disaster situations, but it is, roll with the punches, I guess, just go with it. There's always going to be something, but that is the beauty of it too, is that your talents, your creativity, your organization are all going to come into play and help with those. So.
And you can't take it personally, right? Yeah. Some things are going to go wrong, whether you had control over it or not. And so it's not a failure on your part. It's just part of the game of everything that we're doing on a daily basis.
Absolutely. Yeah. And when things don't go right, it's like, it happens.
So I was actually very fortunate in the beginning of my career. I did not say the best events I've ever done, but I worked with a lot of high-end clients in DC. And maybe at 26, I think when I left for San Diego, I would tell myself not to leave and maybe just stay where I was at, because it's in the event industry, it's all who you know, right? And when you move, and I'm not saying that I was cocky, but like my resume was very, I worked for the President of the United States. Like it was like top notch. Yeah. And I'm like, but this was in 2008. And I don't know if you remember 2008. It was not the time to move, but I didn't watch the news because I was planning events. And maybe just like, I would tell myself to take more time before I make like crazy decisions, like to move across the country during a time that maybe wasn't the best beneficial time because I had to start all over.
Sure.
And it's okay to start over. It makes you stronger, makes you learn better. But maybe, if I had to go back, maybe I would say, maybe you should just stick it out a little bit longer because I had to start over. Maybe I'd be further along in my career. Maybe I'd be like head of an agency, or something like that. But I always like a challenge and I like to learn new industries and try new things. But maybe like to not always make rash decisions. Maybe thoroughly think.
That's really great advice.
I am a total type A personality, but I'm also, like I told you, I come originally from TV background. So when things aren't going well, whatever. It just has to get done, right?
Yeah.
I would tell my younger self to just take a deep breath. It's going to be fine. However, my older self still doesn't do that. But that applies even here on the show floor, right? Like going back to once you're on the show floor and things are happening, it doesn't matter what went wrong. The show is going to happen.
It is going on.
So just shut up and deal with it. That's something that I think younger Kent wouldn't have known, but older Kent, he'll plow through it.
Yeah, that's good. Oh, I agree.